Hello, and welcome to another virtual dose of vitamin Z, where we bring the Detroit Zoo to you. My name is Zahraa. I'm an education specialist at the Detroit Zoological Society, where we celebrate and save wildlife every day. Today, I want to talk about a great bird, the greater rhea. Before we get to that, let's take a look at today's vocabulary words. So today's words are pompous, invasive, non-native, and innocent threat. And pompous is a type of habitat that we'll talk about in just a little bit. And those other three words, invasive, non-native, and innocent threats, are three different ways you can view the same species. So we'll talk about the differences between those three and how what words you use can influence how you behave. All right, so to get started, let's take a look at where we'll be traveling today. So I'm standing behind me, you see the South American yard of the Detroit Zoo, and that's because Rheas are found in South America. So we'll start out here in Michigan, where the Detroit Zoo is located, and travel down to South America to learn more about the greater Rheas. So this Pampas region is a very fertile grassland that's in the central part of South America. And it's very fertile and very biodiverse, and it's had a chance to grow on its own and really support a lot of very diverse wildlife because it's different than anywhere else in the world. It has really tall grasses, really fertile soil, a lot of rain, and it's super important for a lot of different species, including the greater rhea. This space has recently been used more and more by humans, and we'll learn a little bit more about that later on. But first, let's get to see what a greater rhea looks like and learn more about them. So they are these large flightless birds that look a lot like ostriches. So if you remember, ostriches are birds from Africa who are also flightless. So they share that really long neck and that tiny face. They share really long legs, and they share that round body covered in feathers. Both don't have the ability to fly, but rheas are a lot smaller. They're about half the size of a ostrich, and they're found in different locations, right? So the ostrich is found in Africa, whereas the rhea has evolved and grown in South America. Another thing about the rhea is it uses so looking at the rhea, let's talk about some of their body parts. So these long legs help the rheas escape when they need to. When they're feeling like they're in danger, they can easily escape because they have long legs that can take them further, faster. They also have these really big wings that when they expand, make them look bigger than they are. And this helps in two ways. It helps them when they're running away, or when they're standing their ground, to appear bigger and be more of a threat. And when they're running away, it helps them change directions quicker without having to slow down. So these really long wings will act kind of like rudders on an airplane and help them move around without losing their balance and falling over. So rheas are not very aggressive birds. They're actually very social, and they live not only with other rheas, but they live with other animals. So in that grassland, you'll find animals like guanacos, and you'll find deer, and you'll find other birds, and the rheas will be living amongst all of them. So the Pampas is a very fertile land, and over time, it's been converted more and more to farmland as people feel like they need more land. So what's happened is there's been a lot of human-bird conflict. And some of this results from the fact that rheas are opportunistic eaters. So they eat a lot of different things. They eat insects, they'll eat plants, they will eat smaller birds or small lizards, whatever they happen to come across, they'll eat. And as this space is being converted into farmland, what they come across more easily is produce. So you see here the rheas enjoying a frozen piece of broccoli. And in the wild, they're encroaching on farmland and taking away crops, and that can lead to tension. That, along with the decreased habitat space, has led declines in their population. Another thing that's happened is hunting. So hunting for sport or hunting for their leather has led the population to decline. And they actually have a trend of decreasing population. They're not quite at endangered or critically endangered levels because they're such prolific breeders. They can have a lot of young and they do a really good job raising the young, specifically the males. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but I wanted to share a very interesting story about Rheas and how they came to move away from South America. All right, so these birds cannot fly. So where on this map do you think Rheas can be found besides South America, keeping in mind that they can't fly? So it actually is not very easy to guess because there's a wild population of Rheas in Germany, not expected at all. And the way they came here is even more, or they came to be in Germany is even more unexpected. So in Germany, there was a place that had a population under human care of Rheas. One day, about 5 Rheas escaped, 1 male and 4 females. And this population has grown from the year 2000 of 5 to over 500 today. And that's all because they're really good at breeding and really good at raising their young. This also introduces our other vocabulary words, so the invasive species, non-native species, and innocent threats. So the way humans interact with species that aren't normally found in a space has a lot to do with language. So if we're giving or labeling a species as invasive, we're already giving them very negative trademarks. We get this feeling that they're invading a space, they're taking over, and we're kind of taking away our responsibility from how they got to be in that space. Again, the word non-native is not as threatening or as excluding as invasive, but once again, it takes away how they got to be there, who brought them into that space, and it also gets this feeling that maybe they don't belong in this space because they aren't natives to the space. A phrase like innocent threats takes into causes that these animals or these species is innocent, and the way they got here is not through anything or any method on their own, and that the threats they cause to the space need to be weighed against the fact that they have a right to live and to thrive in their new homes that they've found themselves in through no fault of their own. And Germany is a good example. I don't know about the language they use, but the way they behave towards these birds is a good example of how they were able to see these birds as more than invaders. They actually have the same regulations as other birds in the space, and they are protected from hunting, and their population is maintained at around 500, but they are definitely not seen as a threat, and people are not given the right to completely eliminate this population because they're invasive or not native. All right, let's go back to what I said about them being really good breeders and really good parents, specifically the males. The males are really, really good parents. So the way they breed is a male will build up a nest on the ground, and it'll just be a big open space on the ground that he'll lay feathers up, and he'll lay trees. He'll lay branches and leaves to protect the eggs. And then, so normally they're social creatures who are living with a bunch of other Rheas and a bunch of other animals, but when it's time for him to build his nest, he does go out of the way and make sure that he's on his own and able to provide complete protection to his eggs. Females will visit the eggs one at a time. So a female will stop by. If she likes what she sees, she'll hang around and she might even lay some eggs. And she'll stick around laying about 3 to 5 eggs before moving on, and another female can come and decide if she's interested or not and lay some more eggs. And this will continue on for a couple weeks until the male has about 27 eggs to take care of and has been visited by about 7 females. And after that, the female's role is kind of done, and she no longer is really responsible for taking care of the eggs. So the male will incubate those eggs for the 30 to 40 days that they need to be incubated. And something really cool happens when they're about to hatch. One of the chicks inside the eggs will actually signal to each other that they're ready to hatch. And even though they were laid weeks apart, they'll all hatch within a day or 2 of each other. And then the male will continue being that really protective, really good parent that they are, and will make sure that nobody gets near his chicks. And this includes the female Rheas. If he sees a female Rhea coming too close to his chicks, he will be sure to scare them away. And he'll actually continue his role of really good dad for 6 months until they're fully grown. He'll even adopt any lost chicks who seem to be wandering around. If they're without a flock, he'll be a great adoptive dad and really grow that clutch of baby Rheas until they're fully grown. And you can see now with such devoted parenting how that group of 5 was able to grow to over 500 in Germany in the span of 20 years. All right, so today's activity is actually inspired by the way the eggs are laid all together in one basket or one nest. So I have a bit of a puzzle for you to solve. So I have some 6 clues, and then I have the names of 7 female Rheas on the bottom: Anne, Blair, Sierra, Dina, Ethel, Farah, and Gwen. And Ethel, in this case, is hypothetical, but she's actually named after the Rhea who lives here at the Detroit Zoo. And your job is to figure out how many eggs each of these female Rheas laid. So it can look a little overwhelming, but we're going to work through it together and make sure that you include your guesses in the comments below, okay? As we're working through it. All right, so the first way I did it is I decided not to go in order, and I tried to find information that can easily lead me to an answer. So the first thing you can see is Farah laid 6 eggs. And you can go ahead and fill that in for Farah at 6. Continuing it on, Farah laid 1 egg more than Gwen. And to figure that out, you just have to do a little bit of simple math and go ahead and put your guesses in the comments. And we can see that Gwen actually laid 5. And this takes us back to number 3. So now we know that Anne laid 2 eggs less than Gwen. Now that we have an answer for how much Gwen laid, we can figure out how many eggs Anne laid. And the answer to that is 3. Continuing on, we see that Ethel laid 1 egg more than Anne. So you have to find Ethel, who again is named after the Rhea who lives here at the Detroit Zoo, and figure out how many eggs she laid. And if it's 1 more than Anne, then it is 4. Our next bit of advice, we're going to go back to number 1, and we're going to see that Dina laid half as many eggs as Ethel and Sierra. And this is a really good clue because it actually gives us 2 pieces of information. So it lets us know that Ethel and Sierra are the same amount of eggs. So we can figure that out. And then we know that Dina laid half as many as that. So going forward, we can fill in both of that information, and Dina is at 2 because she's half of Sierra and Ethel, who are each at 4. And that only leaves Blair, who laid 1 egg more than Dina. And figuring that out, we know that Blair laid 3 eggs. So this activity seemed a little overwhelming at the beginning because there was a lot of information and none of it really seemed to point us in any directions. But by breaking it down and thinking through it logically, we were able to solve the answers and figure out what each of these female Rheas laid. All right, so doing this activity lets you practice important skills like adding and subtracting, and it gave us a chance to collect some data. But really the most important part was that it helped us with our logical reasoning and coming up with conclusions based on incomplete information. And this is really important. It's an everyday skill that we use every day. We have to use logic to kind of reason with ourselves and make our own decisions. So thank you. If you're interested in this activity and you want to do more puzzles or see some more educational activities, be sure to check out the Detroit Zoo's website for all of our educational programming. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check back here soon for some more virtual vitamin C.